Hey, I'm going out of town this week, so I wanted to go ahead and upload this early and talk to you about Chapter 5. So, Chapter 5 focuses on articulation and phonological disorders. So, when we're learning to speak, infants can be experimentally conditioned to respond to different speech sounds. They discuss some experiments that they did in the beginning of the chapter and how different sounds elicited different responses if students were, or if the children were conditioned to feel that way. Um, then it talks about how young infants can learn to discriminate between sounds that don't exist in their own language. And that's why they can learn more than one language at a time. But they lose this pretty quickly. I believe that they talked about between 6 and 12 months is when they lose that capacity to easily discriminate between several languages. So if you want to expose a child, you need to expose them early. Speech is the production of speech sounds, and those speech sounds are called phonemes. And language is a skill broader that includes speech production as well as including meaning for those speeches. Phonemes are a class of speech sounds. Allophones, those have variations in their production. The word phonemic refers to abstract class of sounds. Phonetic refers to the production of the phoneme. Consonants and vowels are two main classes of speech sounds. Children normally master most of the phonemes in their language by age 7. Errors in producing speech sounds are called disorders of articulation. So then we go to articulation disorders, and although gross deviations of the oral structures, hearing loss, and intellectual disabilities may be associated with articulation disorders, many children who are otherwise healthy and normal may have difficulty learning speech sounds. So this includes a lot of issues like they talk about omission, which is the absence of a required speech sound. Substitution is where they plug in another letter like radio instead of radio or toop instead of soup. An example of omission would be I'm taking a car ride, so they leave out the R, or I'm putting on my boo, and they leave out the T. Distortion is an imprecise sound production that does not match the normal. So an example would be, let's see, what's a good example for a distortion? Like shoop instead of soup. Addition is when sounds are added, and my daughter is doing this right now. So like instead of cup, she says cuppy, or instead of drinks, she says drinky for everything. So right now she's 2 and she's going through addition errors. Then we talk about causes for these disorders. One can be intelligence. There are several studies that show that children with normal intelligence can have difficulty developing speech sounds as well. Another one could be gender. Female children generally have a slightly superior articulation skills than male children. Socioeconomic status. Research has shown that SES is not a strong factor, but it can show up in a causation or as a causation. Birth order and sibling status. I thought this one was really cool. Evidence that firstborn and only children have better articulation skills than do other siblings. They also say that the age differences between siblings can be a factor. And I think a lot of this has to do with the time that parents have to spend with each child. Language development. Because speech is part of language, they've examined the relationship and they have found that if a child has limited language development, they're not putting the meanings with the speech sounds, they're not going to be able to develop those speech sounds as effectively. Motor skills, so speech is a motor task, and if you have issues with, you know, making the sounds with your mouth, or you have some sort of musculature issue, you're going to have a difficult time creating those sounds. Auditory discrimination, if you are hearing words differently than they are being produced, then you are going to connect that sound with that meaning, and you are going to develop that understanding in your language. Oral structures, so tongue tie can have an impact. Let's see here. Hearing loss can also impact speech and articulation disorders. Like I talked earlier, the not being able to hear things, makes it difficult for you to create and mimic those sounds. My grandmother was deaf and she called milk spin, so I have no idea where that came from, but for her, spin meant milk. And I think that's where we're going to stop today. But I hope that you're doing well. I hope that you're safe. Your AB1 is due on the 9th, so please get that in. If you have any questions, email me, let me know. I can put them in a video for you. Stay safe. God bless.